Hello, my loves. One of the things that you know about me is I live for the cosmos, what they're doing, how it relates to my everyday life, how it relates to your everyday life, how it impacts the cosmos. No, how it impacts the collective. The collective doesn't impact the cosmos, let's be real. The cosmos impact the collective. So let's unpack what's going on with Saturn and our dear old friend Pluto, shall we?
She got a moon and the stars, Mercury and Mars, Venus and Neptune, feel it in your heart. It's time for Star
All right, my loves, let's talk about what's going on with the planets, specifically Saturn and Pluto. These two planets are making some pretty big adjustments in the month of March 2023. And these are things that you need to know about. You know, the planets essentially move every single day. I always like to describe that astrology is this game board, and the game board consists of the 12 signs of the zodiac wheel. Starts with Aries, moves into Taurus, Gemini, until it moves all the way around to Pisces. That's our game board. That's the zodiac wheel. Then on top of that game board are the planets: the sun, the moon, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, Venus, Neptune, Pluto. Did I say them all? So essentially, they're all little players on this game board, and every day they all move at different paces in different ways. Sometimes they go backwards, retrograde. The sun and the moon can never retrograde, though. So, but planets can. And in addition, what you need to know is that each slice of the zodiac wheel is 30 degrees. So the 30 degrees of all 12 signs make up a 360-degree wheel. And so when we're looking to see like your birth chart, we're going up into the sky, going up into the cosmos, and we're taking a screenshot of where the planets were on top of the zodiac wheel when you were born. And so we're like, okay, where was the sun? And what degree was the sun in when this person was born, right? So you could say, okay, the sun was in Capricorn when this person was born, and it was at the 13th degree of Capricorn. So you'd be a Capricorn sun at 13 degrees. And looking at the degrees just lets us know how far into the zodiac journey it is. So if the slice of Capricorn, every slice of every sign is 30 degrees, that means it's almost halfway through Capricorn. So when this person was born, the sun was almost halfway through Capricorn. And so if it's more of a lower degree, if you were born and it was 1, 2, 3 degrees Capricorn, you may be learning more about Capricorn in this life. Let's say you were born and it was at 29 degrees Capricorn. You may already have an experienced perspective on the Capricornian way, and you apply that to your life. So the degrees give us meaning from that perspective. It also lets us know how much longer it's going to be in a sign. So we can do that with anything, the moon, any other planet. It's like, whoa, okay, this planet is now at 29 degrees. It means it's going to move into a new sign soon, right? Or it's just at 1 degree. It's just getting started in this sign. And all the planets move at different paces. The moon takes about 28 to 29 days to move around the entire zodiac. The sun takes a year to move around the entire zodiac, right? So they all move at different paces in different places, and we use the degrees to track them to get more meaning. Now, if you want to know your degrees, you do need to know the time of your birth. Because the time of the birth is going to give you the most exact understanding of the planetary alignments and what degrees they were within the zodiac wheel. Not having your birth, you can still get clarity and you can still get degrees. But if you're looking for your rising sign, if you want the exact degree of your moon, those may not be as precise without the time. Okay, that's a little backstory on astrology and how it works. And we're referring to Western astrology. I identify as a Western woman, so therefore I utilize Western astrology. It's also the one that called to me when I was 4 years old. I didn't grow up in an astrological household. However, I found it on my own, and this was the method I found and the one that speaks to me. I have this ability to just look at charts, look at the position of the planets, and just understand automatically what's going on, what's happening. And that is what I'm going to spill to all of you. So boom, here we go. March 2023. This is, if you're listening in real time, this is what's coming up for us. We are experiencing a shift in two of the major social and interpersonal planets, starting with Saturn. So Saturn gets a lot of buzz because of this idea of the Saturn return. And we're not going to go too deep into the Saturn return, but the Saturn return is essentially when Saturn comes back to the sign that it was in your chart. And that usually happens every 26 to 29 years. And during that Saturn return, it's a time of reflection, review, and making sure you're on track with what it is that your soul and you contracted yourself to do here in this life. Now, as a collective, Saturn stays with us for about 3 to 3.5 years, depending on retrogrades. And when Saturn moves into a new sign, because it spends, a good few years in that sign, it impacts us based on what that sign represents. And then Pluto's another big hot topic right now. Pluto is the planet of our generational shifts of how we're making impact as a society. Personally, it's Stephanie Azaria, who runs the Cosmic Path. She says Pluto is meant to show you your greatness. And in order to see your greatness, sometimes you have to step outside your comfort zone. Sometimes you have to take a risk. So that's what Pluto's in charge of. And since 2008, it's been in Capricorn, hanging out there, but it's going to make a big move. And I'm going to tell you all about it. Okay, so let's talk about Saturn first, and then we'll move into some other things that are going on. So Saturn, like I mentioned, is our planet of review, making sure we're on track. The planet that wants us to learn things. Saturn wants to make sure that you learn your lesson. And that's not meant to be, like, you can look at it either way. You can look at it as an authoritative, like someone wagging their finger at you, like, I hope you learned your lesson. Or you could look at it in a very loving, mama, nurturing perspective of, like, I know this was difficult. However, I really hope you learned something from it. That's the energy that you get to choose with Saturn. You get to choose. Do you want it to be I hope you learned your lesson? Because usually when that happens, we didn't learn our lesson, or we're resentful about the lesson, or bitter about the lesson. Or you can choose the energy of Saturn being very gracious and loving and being like, I know that was really challenging for you. However, look at what came out of it. Look at what you learned. Look at how you evolved. And my hope is that you take the more kind approach to Saturn, where, again, it's not going to let you off the hook. It's going to want you to show up. It's going to want you to learn. I mean, we have free will, so you don't have to technically do anything, but it does want you to be able to learn, be able to see the lesson so that you can move into a deeper opportunity, a deeper invitation to how you may evolve, how you may live your life, how you may pivot going forward. And so Saturn, interestingly enough, on March 23rd, 2020, remember that date? Remember that time of year? Mid to late March 2020. We had some interesting things happen, didn't we? Saturn moved into Aquarius. Okay, so it moved into Aquarius at the end of March of 2020. I don't need to rehash what happened. However, Saturn moving into Aquarius was meant to show us where we may be overworking, burning ourselves out, not harmonious, not properly using our resources as a collective. Now, with any transit, there's going to be shadow and light to it. The light was, yes, see where you're burnt out, see where you're not prioritizing properly, see where you're overworking, see where you're too focused on the material, so that you can start to see, with this move into Aquarius, a higher perspective on how to live your life, using technology in a way that best serves you, learning to live your life outside of work, being open to community, being open to helping each other. That was kind of the hope with it. That being said, there's also a shadow side, and the shadow side of that is kind of some of the things that we're seeing at the tail end of Saturn in Aquarius now. Artificial or AI, right? Seeing, things going on in the pharma community, things going on in our government, false agendas, doing things that aren't in the highest good for the collective. So we're seeing a mix of all of that. But the hope is that when we look back and say, okay, March 23rd, 2020 to where I am now, I do realize where there had been some shifts. I do realize where things needed to change in my life. That is the overall hope that comes from it, without getting too deep into the problems that occurred within this window. Because again, there's always going to be free will, there's always going to be an agenda, there's always going to be people that don't look out for us. But more people seem to have a change of heart during this time than not. And we want to hold on to that. And then when you were born, if you were someone that had Saturn in Aquarius in your chart, you went through your Saturn return. So you probably felt it even stronger than the rest of the collective. So on March 7th of 2023, this year, there will be a full moon in Virgo. Lovely. Full moon in Virgo. It's happening at 16 degrees and it's happening at 7:42 a.m. That's happening. And then at the same time, Saturn, that same day, will be moving into Pisces now, which is kind of interesting because Virgo and Pisces oppose each other. So the full moon in Virgo will be opposing Saturn's move into Pisces, which is kind of interesting because with Saturn's move into Pisces, my hope is that it will feel softer in general. Pisces is a water sign. It's creative. It's flowy. It's our mermaid of the zodiac. So where can we be a little bit more like a mermaid, a little bit more in our imagination, a little bit more go with the flow, which the collective in general might be a little bit uncomfortable with, but the hope is that we were primed to have this transition from Aquarius to Pisces so that we can also be a little bit soft in our approach, so that we can make more intuitive decisions going forward, so that we can honor our higher self, our gut instincts, so that we can be kinder to each other, so that we can see each other not just for what we're quote unquote worth from a bank account or influencer perspective, but more of what we're worth just because we're here and we exist and we're a good person. So that opposing the full moon in Virgo is interesting because when planets or signs oppose, there may be an extreme position on things. So the full moon in Virgo wants us to really see our worth, see what we're here for, take care of ourselves. There's a lot of energy around health, vitality, wellness. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of your resources? How are you taking care of the people that you love the most? And then with that opposing Saturn and Pisces, are you willing to trust that going with the flow is better than having it all figured out and trying to control and trying to be logistical and trying to be regimented? There's going to be this push and pull between, can you trust your faith or will you be overridden by your need for what's logical and linear? That's going to be an interesting theme. Now, the full moon will, after 2 days, shift into Libra, and it will just kind of continue on its journey as it does. But Saturn will stay in Pisces until February 13th, Valentine's Eve of 2026. So we get, once again, about 3 years of Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn in Pisces, once again, will be a little softer, a little kinder. But that being said, because it's falling in a feminine water sign and because it's going to be a little bit more flowy, some things might fall through the cracks. There might be some leaks in your foundation. So it's really important to, again, we want to let go of control, but we also want to be aware of what we need. What do you need to feel secure? What do you need to make sure that everything's in order? What do you need to make sure you have a really good foundation? And Jupiter coming into Taurus in May is going to help with that, with the foundational piece. But we may see with Saturn and Pisces together, where our economy might not be working, we're already seeing it, where we've kind of gotten away with things that we shouldn't have, where, just things might start to catch up to us where we've maybe been a little bit sloppy or lazy or haven't been paying attention. There might be some more awareness around that during this transit. If you were born and Saturn was in Pisces when you're born, you're going through your Saturn return, my friend. Another way to see how this is going to impact you is to look at your houses. So the houses are determined by where the sun was along the horizon when you were born. And you need your time for that because that changes every 2 hours. So where the sun was along the horizon is known as your ascendant sign, which is also known as your rising sign. So to get the rising sign, you really do need the birth time. And then once you find out the rising sign, that rising sign becomes house one. Now, the houses have to do with themes that we go through on the journey of being a human. And so, house number one is, how am I most visible to the world? What kind of impression do I make? How am I seen? How do I want to be seen? How am I heard? How do I want to be heard? And then just Google it. If you have my astrology planner, it's in there. I share what all the 12 houses mean. So, once you learn what the 12 houses mean, and once you find out your rising sign, the rising sign becomes house number one. So in my case, my rising sign is Leo. So for those of you that know, yes, I'm a Leo sun, but the sun was also on the horizon ascending over Leo. So I'm also a Leo rising. The moon was in Leo too that day. So I'm also a Leo moon. That being said, my rising sign is Leo, which means that's house number one. Then house number two becomes the next sign in the zodiac if we're going by whole houses, which would be Virgo. Then house number three would be the next sign, which is Libra, and so on and so forth. And again, if we're going by whole houses, it just follows in sequential order of them. So for me, my Saturn will be moving into my eighth house because that's where Pisces is. So if you want more clarity around how Saturn, the planet of leadership, rules, contractual agreements, living your soul purpose, and it's different than the nodes is about like your soul purpose. Saturn is about executing your soul purpose. Okay, it's about the execution. So Saturn will be moving into my eighth house for the next 3 years. And eighth house for me is other people's money, life and death cycles. Those are the two big ones. So how will I be executing this idea of evolving through different cycles of my life while also looking at how money shows up for me in my life? So I look at it as I own my own business. So clearly there's going to be some changes and some shifts in a beautiful way, because I want to look at it that way, around how money is coming in. There also might be some changes in my life from the space of, what are things in the average human cycle, life, death, rebirth, that need to be. It could be for me, like since I'm single, a new relationship coming in because that's the next phase. It could mean a significant death. It could mean a significant birth. I could also have a baby in that window. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I have till 2026? I'm 39 now. I guess it could happen. I could have a partnership, more money, and a baby by the end of the Saturn transit. Check back in with me. We shall see. I don't put a lot of, this is for another podcast, but I don't put a lot of pressure on having a baby. I'm very open to how that process is supposed to go. And in the meantime, I have my baby Zara. Yes, I do. Who's asleep in her Serta mattress bed. Okay, so Saturn will be in Pisces for me, and it will be affecting my eighth house. You need to do the same. Look to see where Saturn is. You might be going through your Saturn return. You may be having Saturn in one of the houses. That's going to give you a theme around what's coming in, what's moving forward, and also what you need to learn, right? There's learning curves around the things that are happening as well. So Saturn making its move on March 7th, the full moon in Virgo. Now, if you're listening to this before March 7th, you may be feeling the last bits of Saturn in Aquarius. So Saturn will still be in Aquarius till the 7th. And whatever was going on in that area for you, you may be reaching the finale. So Saturn was in my relationship house for the last 3 years. It was kind of weird because for me, in early March of 2020, before the pandemic hit, dating was like popping. It was buzzing. I had a lot of prospects. I was going on a lot of dates. It was really fun. Pandemic hit. That all went away. Like I had like a pod boyfriend that I just like hooked up with sometimes, but otherwise nothing. And then I went on the road and I was nomadic, nothing. And then I was like, all right, I gotta spice things up. So I moved to my Venus line in Greenville and I started dating again. And Saturn really played the role of, we hope you learned your lesson with relationships. Like, if anything, if you listen to my last episode on rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, that right there is a great example of Saturn in my seventh house. Learning and recognizing what I needed to know to show up best for relationships. And now that I'm at the tail end of Saturn being in my relationship house, it's actually really cool because I feel that buzz again that I felt right before Saturn went into my seventh house. Like prospects are kind of happening again. Like men are showing up. I'm in a very dating mode. I'm not really stressed out about any relationships or like anyone that I'm talking to. I'm noticing a very relaxed, calm energy. And that's cool for me because that showcases, okay, cool. You got what you needed out of this transit. You're in the final degrees of it, right? 28, 29 degrees. And now it's going to go into Pisces and you're going to do your Pisces thing. Okay. So look to see where it was. Where was Aquarius in your houses? And then look to see where it's going. Okay. So that's Saturn making moves under the full moon in Virgo on 3/7 will be with us until February 13th, 2026. So then we move through the month. We actually have a new moon in Aries at 1 degree on the spring equinox. We're going to have another new moon in Aries on 4/20. Don't say that I didn't give you a way to remember. Right before Earth Day, on 4/20, we're going to have another new moon in Aries, but this one's going to have a solar eclipse and it's going to be at 29 degrees. We're not going to talk about that today. But we have a nice little bright, poppy new moon in Aries, 1 degree, spring equinox. It should be a really lovely day. You should be feeling punchy. You should be feeling excited. You should be feeling passionate. It has some really lovely qualities to it. So that's March 21st. Then, and I do love the idea of, Aries kicking off spring, new moon, new things budding. It's nice. It's nice when the cosmos favor our Earth in that way. Then 2 days later, Pluto will be moving into Aquarius for the first time in our lifetime. You may have had Pluto in Aquarius in like a past life because it was like the 1780s is when the last time Pluto was hanging out on our planet in Aquarius. So unless you were like part of that whole world, you haven't experienced Pluto and Aquarius in this lifetime because Pluto moves very slow, very, 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 very slow, like 200 plus years to make its way back to where, to a sign again. It takes its time because it knows that to make change, you have to take time. Now, I'm not saying it's going to take you 200 years to make a change, but you do recognize that. You know that changes don't happen overnight. You know that there's an evolution that's involved. You know that you have to try things out. You have to take chances. You have to go here. You have to go there. And that's how Pluto operates. So Pluto was in Capricorn in February of 2008. Where were you in your life at that time? February of 2008, Pluto moved into Capricorn. Okay. And it has been in Capricorn ever since. It's going to move into Aquarius on March 23rd. We're going to talk more about that. But let's go back to February 2008. Where were you? What was going on with our economy in 2008? Huh. Interesting. It likes to do snazzy things when it enters, right? 2008, Pluto enters Capricorn. Boom. March 2020, Saturn moves into Aquarius. Boom, right? It likes to, like, these planets, when they make big transit shifts, they like to make an entrance. So we saw that with Pluto moving into Capricorn in February of 2008. For me, it was an interesting time in my life. It was right before my Saturn return. I was not taking care of myself. I was in the throes of addiction. I was working a job that paid my bills, and I was an administrative assistant. I was good at it, but I was going out. I was partying every night. I had no sense of direction. I was not taking care of my body. Drinking Diet Coke like nobody's business. Also, Diet Dr. Pepper. I navigated between the two, but did I love it, especially out of an aluminum can. There was nothing more magical than that, like, pop of opening the can and just drinking right from it and getting that hit of carbonation and caffeine and whatever else, syrup. I loved it. So I was addicted to Diet Coke. Oh, and Advil too. I loved Advil because it had, like, I haven't taken an Advil in a minute, but does it still have that like that sweet little taste to it, right? Didn't it have that like sweet little taste? Yeah. So I love those things. So anyway, that being said, I didn't realize at the time because I drifted from astrology, even though it's something I'd loved my whole life. When I was really not feeling myself and was in a state of depression, I actually didn't like looking at astrology because it made me more depressed because it just showed me all the things I wasn't doing and where I was lacking, any direction or potential. So that being said, though, during that window, I wound up getting really sick. That summer of 2008, I started, I remember it was right after 4th of July, and I think I drank like a 12 pack of Miller Lite by myself that day, in addition to eating like a bunch of fried foods. The next day I woke up, thought I was hungover because I was like throwing up and couldn't hold anything down. And then it wouldn't go away. Literally, I just kept throwing up. Every time I tried to put something down, I could. Oh, I was smoking cigarettes at the time. I couldn't smoke cigarettes. I, yeah, I'm like, I was a beautiful, beautiful being. Couldn't hold anything down, kept throwing up. Didn't feel good. Stomach hurt, a lot of pain in the right side of my stomach area. Went to the doctor and they just said, it was acid reflux. You took a lot of Advil, you were drinking, you weren't eating healthy. It's just acid reflux. Clean up your diet. So I was like, all right. So I started cleaning up my diet. And, I had been a big diet fan. Well, not diet participant. I wasn't really a fan of it. I was a participant of it through my teens and early 20s, and I kind of gave up on it around that window, but I got back into it, started eating clean, like clean veggies, clean oils, and that was about all I could eat because if I ate too much, I would throw up. And I wound up losing, at that time I was 190 pounds. I wound up dropping down in the span of that period to 135 pounds. For context, right now I'm 145. So I went from 190 to 135 in less than a year, because the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I couldn't really eat that much. I had to eat very simple, very clean, very slow. So, but I still had, like, it wasn't like I was cured of my addictions. Like I found ways to drink. Like I found that dirty martinis did okay. And then once you get like drunk enough, you kind of bypass your stomach hurting. It wasn't like I just like got cured from that moment and that was the wake up call. It wasn't. And then also too, there was a lot I was going through mentally because everyone was commenting on my weight. I had pretty much been associated as overweight most of my life. So then all of a sudden everyone's like, you're so skinny, you look like a model, this, that, the other. And then other people being like, my best friend at the time being like, you look terrible, but like not in a like, I want to help you way, more in a like I don't know. It was weird. It wasn't like I'm worried about you. It was just more like you look bad, and I'm like, okay, thanks. I don't know what to do with any of this, right? So there was like a lot going on. So I still like used drinking as best I could to cope. So dirty martinis were my thing, or like vodka club. And then couldn't figure it out. And then I want to say in June of 2009, I had a really bad episode, a flare up with my stomach, so much pain, had to go to the emergency room. They want to give me morphine, this whole thing. And I had mentioned a couple times that I thought maybe it was like my gallbladder based on research I was doing. And they kept being like, no, 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 no. Finally, during this emergency room visit, someone was like, I think your gallbladder is inflamed. I'm like, oh. So they're like, we gotta remove your gallbladder. So like, all right, cool. So we move through the process to get my gallbladder removed. Then turns out, no, you can't get your gallbladder removed, Danielle, because you have mono. Oh, I have mono because I was still off getting drunk and making out with boys. So I had mono. So I had to wait for the mono to clear. And then once the mono cleared, I had the gallbladder removed. But I was still left with a lot. Like, how do I eat again? Like I was feeling better. I was feeling healthier, but how do I eat again? How do I live without a gallbladder? Still was trying to manage drinking, still managing my weight and what that meant, being quote unquote thin. And turns out during this whole thing, Pluto had moved into my sixth house. What's the sixth house? House of health. Huh. How about that, right? So Pluto moved into my sixth house. Then eventually that fall, I started my Saturn return, which that's when I got, and if you've heard my story, I was sexually assaulted, and it was enough to get me to a point where I went and got help. And then from getting help, that's when I started to really learn how to take care of myself. Intuitive eating, meditation, became a life coach. I'm here where I am today. So now that Pluto is going to be moving into Aquarius March 23rd, I am. I'm just getting emotional about this. Pluto, I did not expect this coming. Pluto moving into my sixth house in 2008 was probably the best thing that could have happened to me over the last, 20 plus years, because it allowed me to be healthy. Now, I've had ups and downs with my health during this window, yet I always have learned how to take better care of myself because of it, or learn better ways to take care of me, or learn, I mean, goodness, the things that I've learned, like acupuncture, Reiki, yoga, energy healing. I mean, there's so many things. The sauna, like so many things that I didn't do prior to 2008. I also didn't have the resources as much too. I was like in my 20s, but early 20s. But regardless, it allowed me to be at peace with my body. It allowed me to heal my eating disorder with food. It allowed me to heal my addictions. It allowed me to be healthy. It allowed me to have the vitality and the awareness and the ability to show up as a healer, to show up in the wellness space, to show up to help you find better ways to live your life, right? So it's given me so much. And of course, yeah. So it's like now that we're rounding out, I do feel really good. I do feel really healthy. I do feel really spot on with my body. So that now that Capricorn moving out of my sixth house and into my seventh, so it's going to move into, so this is what's going to happen, my friends, back to all of us. Pluto's going to move into Aquarius on March 23rd, okay, of this year, March 23rd, 23. And it's going to be there till June 11th of this year. Then, because of retrograde, it's going to do one more tour in Capricorn. Okay, so we're going to get a preview of what life is like with Pluto in the next house for you, of what life is like for all of us with Pluto in Aquarius. Okay, once Pluto retrogrades to Capricorn, we're going to have one last hurrah with it in that area of our life. Okay, so I'm going to have one last hurrah with it in my sixth house. You're going to have one last hurrah, whatever Pluto and Capricorn means for you. I think we're even going to have one last hurrah of, where it was when it started, like with the recession, things like that. So then, though, on January 21st of 2024 until January of 2044, Pluto will be in Aquarius. So basically, starting in the new year, we'll have 20 years of Aquarius. So basically, from March 23rd, 23 to June 11th, we'll get a preview. What's life like with Pluto in Aquarius? And then we'll do kind of a wrap up of the last 20 years of Pluto and Capricorn together for the last 6 months of the year. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So I really want you looking to see where Pluto lands for you. With Pluto now moving into my seventh house, I do believe that partnership is going to be more available to me. And it's going to be a partnership that lands in more of like, it doesn't have to be marriage per se, but like a long-term fashion. It's going to move into bigger collaborations with my career. I really always felt like I was a late bloomer. I really didn't feel like my life was I wanted it to pop sooner, but I really knew deep down my life wasn't going to really pop till my 40s. I'm going to turn 40 in August. And I think Pluto moving into Aquarius for basically, my 40s to my 60s is going to be very significant in having the partnership and the career elevation that I'm looking for. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to being showcase my greatness in those areas. And I'm looking forward for that to happen to you as well. As far as how it's going to run in our collective, Aquarian is technology. So we do have to be mindful of AI. We're going to become more and more advanced when it comes to technology. And we have to just keep trusting that the technology is serving us for our greater good, for the best in our collective. And do our best also. I mean, I think Pluto in Aquarius is also going to show us even more around cell phone addictions, where 5G might be hurting us, where we're too tied to our phones, microchips. And again, I'm not saying this as a conspiracy theorist at all. I'm just sharing from the space of what's possible. If we look at how technology has changed in the last decade, I can only imagine how it's going to change in the next 2 decades. By the time we reach 2044, when Pluto is done in Aquarius, what will that create for us? Aquarius is the water bearer. It's an air sign. And it's an air sign because it's holding this barrel of water. And in the barrel, the water represents wisdom. And the wisdom is activated and filtered through our voice, through communication, through technology. Okay, that's how it works. And the hope is that it'll be done for our highest good. But there's some bad seeds out there, so I'm not quite sure how they're gonna, go about it. even to like, I mean, if you're on Instagram, please know I will never DM you for a rating. You know, all those fake accounts that are out there of me and then quote unquote me messaging you for a reading. There's going to be more stuff like that. People are going to be able to develop technology where it's like they're going to be able to like make you as a video and chat to someone else as you, you know? So that's why, and again, I don't say this to be scared. I say this to remember, in spite of all the advances that we're making, don't forget human connection. Because I also think that's going to be really powerful. I think there's going to be more of us in person, more of us wanting to retreat to the earth, to the water, to the forest, to find ways that we're using technology to also keep us connected to the earth and to each other from a physical perspective. So that's really important as well. And, you know, we just have to trust the process. We have to trust that we're here for a good reason, that you wanted to be here, that you're meant to be here. And from that, you're taken care of. And the more that you can lean into that, the more you can understand that everything is okay. It always was, it always is, and it always will be. And that's the best that we can do. And that's the best that I can do as far as these transits. So that's what's going on. All right. It's all going to pop with the full moon in Virgo on March 7th. Saturn's going to make its run in Pisces for 3 years. We get a nice, lovely, juicy new moon in Aries. Entrepreneurs, you're looking to launch. Love that window. And then Pluto giving us a little preview of what it's going to do until June, and then be with us for 20 years till 2044. And then it'll kind of do a little, I like to think whenever that happens, when we get like the preview and then it goes back to the sign it was in, it's just like a recap, cleaning up, cleaning house. It's like Pluto and Capricorn went on like a little vacation. They did some review. They did some, you know, just thinking about things. And then when it comes back in June, it's just kind of like, oh wait, I just want to like tie up these loose ends. And that's really what's going to be for us. So remember, the cosmos are our friend. The patterns in the sky are meant to help us. This is all a process. This is all a journey. This is all meant to help you and give you what you need from a soul and human perspective. If you need more clarity, check out my cosmic channel. We always have fun cosmic things going on there, or reach out to me. Maybe we're meant to work together in some capacity. And if you're hungry to learn more about astrology, check out my course, Next Level Astrology. It's going to give you a lot of yummy stuff to do in that regard as well. All right, I love you. Happy transits. We got this.